Game of Thrones Season 8, the Lost finale, the Percy Jackson TV show. What do all of these things have in common? They're just a bit rubbish, honestly. Currently, the internet is giving their opinions on the new Percy Jackson TV show, and it is very mixed. Some people absolutely love the show. They think it's exactly what they wanted and they just can't fault it. And some people think that it fell flat, and unfortunately, that's where I sit. I am a very big fan of the Percy Jackson series. I've read nearly all of the books, including the Heroes of Olympus and Trials of Apollo series, and along with everyone else, when the original movies came out in 2010, I lost all hope in a live-action adaptation that would be true to the book. So when I heard that there would be a new TV series of the book on Disney+, that Rick Riordan himself would be involved in, I was excited to say the least. I thought, finally, I'm gonna get the version of Percy Jackson that I'd imagined for so long. Well, I was excited until I started watching the series, and it made me think that maybe Rick Riordan should stick to writing the books, because he's good at that. Here are some comments that I found about the show so far. I feel like the vibes are off. There's literally no action or suspense. The action scenes that need to show emotion are giving nothing. I really want to love the show, and I'm watching every single episode because I love the books, but honestly they're missing so much. Are they deadly allergic to tension and mystery? Has a huge point, sadly. They need to stop walking in knowing everything without any explanation as to how. Having them be know-it-alls is doing less to showcase their intelligence and more to erasing major events and fun plot points. And I just have to agree. One thing to note as well, Rick Riordan, who is the original author of the Percy Jackson series, if you didn't know, has very publicly criticised these movies from the 2010s that he wasn't involved in making. And I do agree with him, the fact that they didn't stick to his books, and that's fair. They didn't follow the same plot, and this is his exact quote when asked about them. He said that they were terrible, and that it felt like his life's work was going through a meat grinder when he pleaded them not to do it. Fair enough, okay. That is your intellectual property, and someone has used it and mangled it to make their own movie. He also recently said, and I quote, "normalize bad movie erasure," when referring to not using poker face during the Lotus Casino scene. Again, valid opinions that you can have, but you really have to produce a good TV show, otherwise it just does not look good. It comes off in a bad taste considering that the TV show is just not that good. The movies, regardless of being nowhere near true to the book, were at least entertaining. The Lotus Casino scene was completely iconic. Anyway, onto the first episode. I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. The cast. I have no problem with the main three's casting. I think they're all good, and considering they're quite young, I don't really want to critique them too much. The only thing I would say is it seems that they don't have very strong reactions to things, which I do think the directors should have guided them to do, but sometimes it just feels like they did one take for every scene and then moved on. When something really serious is happening to Percy, like when he's fighting Mrs. Dodds, or when he's telling his mum that weird things are happening to him, he kind of takes the Addison Rae style of acting and talks slowly and quietly. What they changed from the books. Gabe is not mean enough in this show. He's annoying, but he's not cruel and horrible. We don't really root against him that much. I don't know why they dulled down his character that much. There are so many flashbacks to Percy as a kid with his mum in situations that weren't really in the book. I assume that this is to make us feel more connected, but I just don't really care, and I kind of find them very boring when they do appear. Grover rats Percy out as the person that pushes Nancy into the fountain. I don't like this because that's not something that Grover would do, and I know that he does it to expel Percy, but in the book they don't need to do that. It just doesn't feel like a part of his character. My main critiques of this episode. This episode just has a lot of conversations explaining things and telling instead of showing things, which, as you'll see, happens throughout the series. The fight scenes don't feel very dramatic. With Mrs. Dodds, Percy didn't even try and run away, and this was his face when he saw her. Then he magically defeats her with the sword that he didn't know he had. About 3 seconds after the altercation starts, it's finished and solved and on to the next thing. There's no consequences, no tension. The movie version did a way better job of it, honestly. There is a scene where a plumber comes out of an apartment with someone yelling at him as he's leaving. As he leaves, Percy's coming into this apartment and Percy says sorry. And then the plumber just point blank says to Percy, "You're walking in, I should be apologising to you." Because this is Percy's apartment and the man yelling is his stepfather Gabe. But we don't know that yet. There is no subtlety. I would have so much rather if the plumber had walked out the door with the man yelling at him, looked at Percy and silently acknowledged that he was going into that and he got to leave. Why did he need to say that point blank? I don't know. A huge thing. I cannot see what is happening sometimes on the screen because the lighting is just that poor. I understand that they want an ominous effect, but look at this. You can't see what's happening. These are actual screenshots from the show, and I was struggling even with full brightness. There are some things I liked, obviously. The sets are fantastic. This episode, not so much, just because, fair enough, they haven't gone anywhere that interesting, but the cabins are perfect at Camp Half-Blood. They're exactly what I would have imagined. The music is quite ethereal, and I think it is good. I just think they need to use it differently. In the fight scene, the music didn't start playing until he was about to defeat the Minotaur. I think they should have used it to build up that moment instead of just play it as he defeats it. I don't think that builds up any tension whatsoever. But I do like the music itself. The monologue at the beginning felt perfect for Percy Jackson, and I really, really wish that they had stayed with an internal monologue throughout the show. Even if it was just dotted around and only happened sometimes, I think it really would have enhanced it. Percy's really witty, and it's kind of lost without this. I think there's many ways they could have done it, but I think even just a little bit per episode would have really enhanced it. And the Minotaur CGI is really good, if you can actually see it. I really could not find a screenshot of the Minotaur that wasn't really hard to see, but if you can see it, it looks pretty good. And that's the end of the first episode. I understand that the first episode needs to set up all the lore and background information of the show, but it just feels really dull. Nothing in this episode stands out for me. One of the best first episodes of a show that I've seen is from Lost. At no point is this episode boring. Same with Stranger Things. Their first episode was incredible. I don't think that a first episode has to be boring, otherwise, in other cases, it wouldn't get picked up, so why is this one? And the main problem is really obvious. It's the tension and the lack thereof. Why is there no tension in anything that happens? And the use of 30 odd minutes for each episode is not effective. They do not use their time wisely, including random cuts to black for like 3 or 4 seconds. I just think overall this episode fell flat.